You know, and I told myself that I was going to turn the sound on. I told myself I was going to turn the sound on. I'll have to go back and edit that. Very embarrassing because what I said was, very profound, and you guys are at a real loss for not having heard it. Anyway, so this is the Surviving BPD Relationship Breakup channel. My name is Mike, and I am here to do one thing, which is to help non-borderlines who have been in a toxic relationship with borderlines to recover. I'm not here to talk about borderlines. If you are in therapy and you are a great partner, I'm not talking about you. If you are a partner of a borderline, you're married to one, it's your boyfriend, girlfriend, and you guys get along great, I'm not talking about you either. So stop sending me nasty messages telling me how I'm stigmatizing you. I'm not stigmatizing you. I'm talking about the unfortunate person who suffers from a mental illness called borderline personality disorder, who is not in a healing, recovering state, who unfortunately, unwittingly ends up causing damage to other people. And I'm here to help those people get their lives back. I'm not here to bash borderlines or anybody else, and I'm not here to wallow in victimhood. I'm here to give out a helpful rope to help people go and help themselves. I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to therapize you. I'm not here to intellectually talk about mental illness from the armchair of the therapists or the psychiatrists. I'm not here to do that. I am here to share my understanding about how I healed myself from a specific relationship. And I'm here to examine what happens to those of us who are on the other end of it, and for us to take responsibility for that. So that's what I'm here to do. So let's get to the title, because the title is really telling us everything we need to know. Let's see, what did I say the title was? Let me find it really quickly. This was a discussion that was started. It's actually been going on for a little while between me and one of my viewers. And it was a discussion about, can the partner of a borderline, can they be a narcissist? And I went on to, I actually was inspired. Okay, here we go. I was inspired by somebody had shown me to another YouTube channel, Sam Vakinen, who is I believe, a diagnosed psychopath or diagnosed narcissist, who has been writing about it, and he's got some really great information. And he was talking about that self-styled empaths. So people who call themselves empaths, and really, I call them super empaths and I didn't make up that name, super empath, but I call them that as well. People who use this idea of being an empath to justify continuously being damaged and victimized. And the idea is that they believe themselves to be so full of love and so full of kindness and so full of healing that they can't help themselves but go after the victims of the world, the borderlines, and because they're so loving, it makes them targets for these narcissists. And in fact, the narrative continues. If you go and watch on YouTube the channels, just type in super empath. That's all you have to do. You'll find channels about how the narcissist looks for the empath so they can feed off of the empath, and all this talk about. And then there's this talk about defeating narcissists and out manipulating them. And this isn't what I do here on my channel, but there's no shortage of that out there. So I really liked it because he was saying that these self-styled empaths, he made the argument, if I remember correctly, he made the argument that they were actually covert narcissists. And I wanted to point out, the word covert narcissist, I've seen that because it comes on my channel and people use it all the time. In fact, there's been no shortage of people who have said, and sometimes I'll address somebody if in the comment section, I'll say, you sound really codependent to me, or that sounds like a codependent. Or my favorite phrase, if you've been with a borderline for more than 1 or 2 weeks, you by definition are a codependent. Now, a lot of people can't stand that. A lot of people hate that. They'll say, I'm not a codependent, I'm an empath. And then they'll give me this whole spiel about, no, you don't understand. Here's what they did. They did this to me. They did that to me. They did this to me. And you don't understand. I am trying to get my sanity, but they're a covert narcissist. And then the term covert narcissist. Go type it up, covert narcissist. And what I get, I wasn't familiar with that term. And I gathered what they were saying, and the feeling that I was getting from them as they were saying it was that a covert narcissist was a narcissist who was hiding. They were covert, they were like a spy. They were pretending to be a nice person or whatever it is that they were supposed to, but underneath that, they were really planning out your demise. They were covertly planning out your demise. And so now I actually have an idea of what a covert narcissist is. It's not a narcissist. It's not a narcissist who's pretending to be something else. A covert narcissist is a secondary narcissist. Their primary, they might be their primary behavior might be different. They might be vulnerable. Like they might be borderline type, whatever. They will have a different primary mental illness symptom, but then they have a secondary reactionary symptom that's covert. And so he was making the argument that self-styled empaths, the super empath who stands there with his cape flapping in the wind, who is healing all of the hurts and saving all of the stranded puppies and the kittens in trees, and that's why he's constantly attacked, but he's not going to let the narcissist win. His love is going to, and of course they spend a lot of time complaining about their situation and talking about how victimized they are, and they spend whole, there's whole YouTube channels about it. There's online discussion forums where all these empaths get together and talk about, their victimization by the evil narcissists. And he was saying that they're covert narcissists, that they use the idea of their empathy, their healing, their giving is actually a narcissistic ploy to either take you hostage or cause you pain or things like that. And of course they believe that they're victims. Now, interestingly enough, let me see if I can find one. I'll try, if I can find it quickly, I will. There was a very honest question. This was by a borderline. So again, I was very pleased with the comment, and I was actually very grateful for the honesty and the bravery of the individual to share this. So when I share this, I'm not doing so in any kind of a desire to harm them. In fact, we don't know. The jury is out as to whether or not this person is borderline. This person says, question, I feel like I have to fix everyone and everything while also feeling like I have never been allowed to be upset by things that have happened to me. So I give and give and give until I reach the breaking point of not having my needs met, and then I lash out. Does this sound codependent or borderline? My response to that was, well, borderlines are also codependents. To be honest, your experience could be either. That word is key, experience. This is, by the way, if you want to heal, I don't care who you are. If you want to heal, this is what you have to do. You have to be brutally honest with yourself, which I'm going to point out, empaths are not. Self-styled empaths are not honest about their agendas. And if you're willing to stop judging your own agendas and be honest and have them, you can heal. In fact, most of the time, there's nothing wrong with your agenda. If you were to present your agenda honestly, you would be fine in doing so. The damage comes when you present your agenda as something else, when you spiritualize it, like the empath. With the empath, let's just assume the empath is actually just a codependent. The codependent wants love. Codependent wants love, has tremendous needs that need to be met, tremendous needs for intimacy and love and nurturing. And if they were able to honestly own that what they want more than anything with their borderline is for the borderline to love them, because there is something about the borderline for them that is so incredibly attractive. When the borderline gives love, it comes across very honest, which it is, and very pure and very authentic and very innocent. And the codependent, when they feel that intense of love, it reminds them of what they fantasize about that they've never had. And so they fall in love instantly, thinking that that's going to continue. When it doesn't, when the borderline flips on them and splits and rejects them, then this creates a panic within the codependent that stimulates and re-stimulates old wounds from childhood. And so they end up chasing after the borderline harder than ever. What they tell themselves and what they feel, they're not consciously lying to themselves, but what they consciously feel is that they are now filled with tremendous caring, nurturing, and love, and they want to save the borderline. And they will tell you that. They will tell you that I am here to help somebody else. They've been through so much. You have no idea what they've been through. Nobody understands what they've been through. Nobody understands it like me. You've heard me even say that. You've heard me say things like that. That nobody understands the borderlines like I do. I'm the only one that can help them. All I have for them is love. Now I see how much pain they're in, how damaged they are. I now have to have no desires. I am all about them, and they are filled. They might be tears coming out of their eyes. They will put up with whatever abuse they have to in the hope of saving that poor broken little kitten from damage. When the whole time what is fueling them is their tremendous need to be loved and nurtured. Now, if they can own that, which is what I want people to do. I mean, I don't care. You can do whatever the hell you want. What I want to share with you is what's helped me, which is to own your feelings and not judge them. When you can fully own that what you want from this individual is the love you never got, and that creates in you this tremendous panic and this tremendous need. And if you can become conscious, I'm very particular with my words. At first I'm saying if you can get honest about what you want, because you do know what you want. But when you can get conscious of your projection, you're projecting onto the borderline your pain. What you see in them is your pain. And you project onto them a desire that they don't have. You project onto them a desire to be saved and to be loved without end. I mean, they do actually have that, but they've got this other thing in there where they have to beat you to the punch. They have to, whenever you love them, they have to reject you. They can't help it. But you don't see that because that's not how you work, because you're an empath. You're a codependent. So you don't split. You fall in love and you grab on and you take hostages. You never let them go. You think that you're just going to love them no matter what. And I've had interactions with codependents, again, those who claim to be empaths usually, who will talk about how much they love, and you don't understand. I've been forced to follow my borderline for hundreds of miles as they go and cheat on me with their ex-boyfriends, and I've been forced to spy on them. And I'm like, who forced you to do that? Well, what they would say is that my need to take care of them and protect them and make sure that this relationship works has forced me, or their self-destructive behavior, or their dangerous behavior has forced me to spy on them, to stalk them. They forced me to do it. But what they are not conscious of is that that's what they want somebody to do to them. That they feel like the borderline. They want to run. They want to run away from pain. And they want to run away from their own pain. And they want somebody who says, I am going to save you. The codependent wants somebody to say to them, I am going to save you. And so their experience is nobody did save them. So they then have their own, psychological lapse, and they project all of that onto the borderline, assuming that that's what the borderline really unconsciously wants. That the borderline wants you to finally catch them, like prey, to finally catch them, to wrestle them to the ground, and then just sit with it, let the love get inside of you, and just let it, I used to be a born-again Christian, which is why I make so much fun of them. I used to be a born-again Christian, and we believed that if you quoted Bible verses to people enough times, that the Holy Spirit would get into them and they would turn into Christians. They'd finally see the light and believe and let Jesus save them. So codependent. But the codependent is thinking that that's what the borderline wants. They think that the borderline, or the narcissist, or whatever your psychopath, or whatever your cluster B you're chasing after, they think that that person is going to, if you love them enough, if you find the exact way to love them the right way, or just overwhelm them with it, that finally they will see the light and they will turn around and say, yes, you can love me, and now I will let you take me hostage forever and I'll never leave you. And it never happens, which is why it creates that cycle. So anyway, I was saying that. I was really enjoying that idea of the empath being a covert narcissist. And my point was that the narcissistic aspect of it is what I just described. That you really do not see the borderline at all. You do not see them for who they are. You do not see how they function. You think you do. In your condescending superiority as you look down on them. And I'm going to show you in this comment, we're going to see how condescending and superior the codependent is. In your condescending superiority over the borderline, you know exactly what it is that they need and they want, and you're going to give it to them. But the truth is, you don't see anything. You have no idea. Which is why when they split on you, among many other reasons, that is one reason why it is so devastating. Because you know this is it. This is the one. I said this and I said this. In fact, people, again, they'll leave me these comments where they want to. I mean, I get it. You want to let it all out. And I said to them this, and I said to them that, and they still split on me. As if what you say is going to change their nature. You're not going to, by talking to a cobra, turn it into a puppy. It's not going to happen. Doesn't matter how much magic you think you have. So we talk about the borderline having magical thinking. This is the magical thinking of the codependent. Magical thinking of the codependent is, if I can just say that one thing that, because if you think about it, I mean, my logic here is impenetrably perfect. So if you can just shut up for 10 seconds and stop splitting on me, I'm just going to tell you this, and then it'll all be over. Case closed. The condescending superiority of the codependent. So I was saying, and to me, I mean, that's narcissism. So now I'll get to the comment here. So Johan and I have been going back and forth on this, and in a good way. I thought we've had a good discussion. He didn't like that I said that empaths were narcissists. He didn't like that at all. And he, to his credit, he voiced that, and we had a back and forth on the live Q&A. And so, of course, being who I am, because I'm the one talking and you guys are typing, I get to have the last word and all that. So, I ended up, of course, having the last word, and everything I said was brilliant and unbelievable. And Johan didn't like it. And then towards the end, Johan tried to, make friends with me as though we were in a fight, which we weren't. I have no negative feelings towards Johan whatsoever. I think he's in denial, but that's my opinion. It doesn't mean anything. It's just my opinion. That's the other thing. This is true about both borderlines and codependents. They can't stand anybody's negative opinion about them, which is why borderlines are codependent and codependents are codependent. This is why they both share this. They can't stand anybody thinking negatively of them or thinking wrongly about them. No, that's not accurate. That's not who I am. They can't stand it. And as I've been sharing, humility, true humility, which really what I mean by that is true maturity, is to individuate and let somebody have their feelings. And to be okay with, that's how they think about me, and they're wrong, but I mean, they can think whatever they want. Having somebody being angry at you, to be able to understand, well, I can understand why they're angry. It's not my fault, but I understand. And you don't have to talk them out of it. You can listen to them. They say, I'm really mad at you because you did this and that bothers me. And you can go, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I totally understand. I would feel the same way. And then walk away. That apology doesn't mean you have admitted any fault. You're just acknowledging their pain and their feelings and knowing that could be you. That's individuation. Borderlines and codependents both, and narcissists, all that, they can't handle that. You have to think that they're perfect. And if you don't do that, it's an attack on their person. It's an attack on their essence, and they have to right that wrong. So I was saying to Johan at the end, he was saying, we can both be right. And I said, we don't have to both be right. You don't have to make up with me. You don't have to kiss my ass. It's okay with me if you are mad at me, if you disagree with me, if you don't like me. It's okay if I don't like you. And it's okay if I dislike you. It's just a feeling. It's okay. And I said, I encourage you, instead of trying to placate me as though we're enemies, have your anger. When I turn this off, have your anger. And he said something to the effect of that would be very difficult, or he didn't want to do that. I can't remember what it was. But here's the codependent. Forgive me, Johan, for using it as an example, but it's a perfect example. The codependent, unlike the borderline, see, the codependent splits, not in the same way. Borderlines split in a very primitive, very transparent, immediate way. Because they're psychologically infants. They don't have the sophistication to do what codependents do. Codependents have a much more sophisticated and intricate defense mechanism where they'll split, but instead of splitting 100%, I have to destroy you, they will take revenge. And they take revenge passive aggressively. Or they'll wait. And then once they have you in their sphere, then they'll tell you how you did this and how you did that, and they will right the wrong. that has been done by your negative feeling about them. And so, ironically, I was saying to Johan, no, have your feelings. Don't try and kiss my butt. Don't try and make it okay. Don't try and be my friend. Go ahead and be upset. I'm okay with you doing that. It won't bother me at all if you have your own feelings, and I think it's healthy for you to have your negative feelings about me. Go right ahead. And to which he gave me the feeling, from what I read, what I remember, he gave me the feeling that he wasn't going to do that, and he didn't like that idea. But then, what do I get? Hours later, the next day, I get this. Now, he's going to triangulate, very passive aggressive. He's not going to address me personally. He's not going to say, hey, Mike, you said this and this, and I've been thinking about it. And again, being honest about what you want is a really loving, healthy thing to do. But because, those of us, codependent cluster Bs, because of our, dysfunctional childhood, we weren't ever taught to be able to do that. So we do all kinds of sneaky, backhanded, passive-aggressive or outright aggressive things. And so Johan is going to be passive-aggressive right now. I'm not angry with you, Johan. I'm just showing you what I see here. Because I believe Johan is a codependent. And I think Johan agrees with me. We'll find out. He says, for those that think being codependent automatically applies that the person is a narcissist. Again, this is very codependent. Codependents don't talk about their own feelings. They talk about people's feelings in the third person. They'll talk about your feelings. They have no problem pointing a finger at you and talking about your feelings, kind of like what I'm doing right now. But they don't talk about their feelings because they haven't been, this is nature of codependence. You weren't given the right to have your feelings. You were shamed or punished or abandoned or something, rejected because of them. And so instead of that, we talk about it in the third person. It's very passive aggressive, but aggressive, the word passive doesn't make it okay. Just because you say it and put a smile on your face doesn't make it okay. The aggression behind it is still there. And you'd be better off at least knowing, the one thing about borderlines, at least when they rage at you, at least it's honest and it's right out there. Unless they're quiet, but same kind of thing. It's very just extreme and right out there. They don't hide it. It's there for everybody to see. But the codependent has very sophisticated ways of not owning their resentment. So if Johan had said, it really bothered me what you said. I don't like that you said that about me. You said that about codependence, because I didn't even say it about him. If I say it in the third person, that codependents are covert narcissists. He didn't even say, when you said that, it made me upset because I don't feel that that's who I am, and I don't like that you said that. That at least would be an honest, direct communication with me. He's not doing that. He's going to triangulate. He's going to use you guys, the viewers, to back him up. Because this is really about me. He's upset with me because of what I said, because he doesn't like the way it makes him feel. The idea that a codependent is a covert narcissist. He doesn't like that. So he says, for those thinking that being codependent automatically implies that the person is a narcissist, please watch the following video of Sam Vakinin clarifying what codependency is. Listen very carefully at 6 minutes, 30 seconds. I'll read the rest of his comment. He explains the profound difference between... No, that's interesting. He inserts the word profound. He explains the profound difference between codependency and narcissism and adds the caveats that narcissists have codependency, but that codependency does not imply narcissism. Actually, that's not what he said. What he said was, and I'm not saying I agree with him, but I watched the video because I like Sam Vakinin. I find his videos very inspiring to me, as you can tell. Doesn't mean I agree with everything that he says, but he didn't say that that codependency does not imply narcissism. He said narcissists are codependents But codependents are not narcissists because codependents have empathy and narcissists do not. That's what he said. He doesn't say, anyway, he doesn't say it the way that Johann is trying to say it. Let me finish with Johann's quote here. He explains the profound difference between codependency and narcissism and adds the caveats that narcissists have codependency, but that codependency does not imply narcissism. Codependency and narcissism are two different things. The vicious part is the covert narcissist and the codependency coming with that. So now he turns it all around. He, again, doesn't talk about his feelings about what I said. He triangulates between you guys and Sam Vakinin in order to, shame me out of my opinion. And then he uses that as an excuse to go and take the role of the empath and talk about how horrible the narcissist is. Do you see what I mean? It's all about keeping that narrative of being a victim. The narrative of being the victim, the helpless victim, which, the rest of us go, why would you do that? And the empath says, well, the reason why you don't do that is because you're not as far on the empathy scale as I am. So, again, I learn all kinds of new things just by having this channel. Somebody came onto the channel, as I've shared with you, and said, didn't like me talking about codependence and their narcissism and their projection and their unconsciousness, and that they have selfish agendas, they're controlling and manipulative. They didn't like that, and they said that there was a scale, or that there was a spectrum, and on one end of the spectrum is the psychopath, and on the other end of the spectrum is the empath. In other words, psychopath bad, narcissist bad, borderline bad, empath good. Like there's good and evil. That's evil, I'm good. I'm an empath. And they said it as a fact, and I said, where did you get that from? Just because you spouted as a fact, you heard it on a video, it's true? And of course I went on to say, not only is that not the case, that they're on the opposite sides of the spectrum, they're right next to each other. I love the idea that the borderline is a failed narcissist. I love the idea that the codependent is a failed borderline. Comes from the same issue. Same thing creates them. That's why they come together like Velcro. Because somebody who isn't codependent goes, I can see this person's in a lot of pain, but they're crazy and they're hurtful and I don't want to be around it. Forgive me, borderlines, for calling you crazy. I'm just pretending to be somebody else right now. That their behavior is really hurtful. I don't want to be around that. Well, the empath says, well, of course you don't want to be around it because you're in the middle there. You're not a psychopath and you're not a narcissist, but you're not an empath like me. You only have about 50%. Oh yeah, you might put a nickel into the homeless guy's cup, but I'm going to take him home. I'm going to take him home and I'm going to feed him and I'm going to find him a job and I'll let him stay at my house. There have been people on my channel that talk about that. Yeah, there's an alcoholic homeless guy and I let him live at my place, but it's only for a little while. And I say, what the hell are you doing? You're helping that guy stay drunk. The kindest thing you can do for that alcoholic is let him wake up in his own puke. When it gets bad enough, he'll go do something about it. If he doesn't and dies drunk, that's not your fault. That's not your problem. You're not helping that guy. The empath says, but you don't understand. My love, like the Holy Spirit, through the Lord's Prayer, my love will heal anything or anybody, and it's my job to do that. I have more love than you, middle of the road, normal person who doesn't love as much as I do. So they are so full of narcissism. They're so full of a false self. What does the narcissist do? Narcissist projects a false self because they have none, or they're so insecure and they can't even, a true narcissist can't even acknowledge how insecure they are. Donald Trump. They can't even acknowledge, whatever it is. I can never lose. I didn't lose. I didn't lose. I'm not losing. I didn't lose. The empath cannot acknowledge how painful it is for them that they're not being loved. They cannot acknowledge that they actually feel inferior. They feel so full of shame. They feel so unworthy and so unlovable and so wrong that they, covert narcissists, turn around and put this false identity of, you don't understand. I have more love than the average person. I can't help myself. Yes, you have less than I do. They can't even see how full of themselves they are. So I forgot what I was talking about there. So yeah. So I don't agree with Vakinin in this sense. Now, I don't know the man. I only know a few of the videos that I've watched. He, as I understand it, he is a diagnosed and also professed narcissist. So if he sees that there is a difference between a narcissist and the codependent, and he feels that as the narcissist he lacks empathy, from his perspective, perhaps the codependent has too much empathy or something like that. I'm saying that the codependent also lacks empathy. Perhaps we should use the word compassion, which is what I put into the title here. So we're getting lost into words, but this is important for me. And the reason why this is important for me is because for the codependent, I'm all about the healing. I mean, I do get, as you can tell, I get all wrapped up into the intellectualization of it all, and I love doing that. But the whole point of that is the healing. That's all I care about. If me having an opinion that is different from, a psychologist or a psychiatrist, if my different opinion, which comes from my experience, leads me to actually healing and getting healthy, I'm happy to have a difference of opinion. I'm also open to changing my opinion. I don't have an agenda about it. This is my experience because I am a codependent. And I have worn the cape of a super empath before. When I was with my borderline, I was in full super empath glory. I was the only one. Yeah, those other guys that she was with, that other narcissistic abuser that she was with that did this and this to her, and her father who did that and that to her, she actually had me believing that her father had sexually abused her. Now looking back on it, I mean, I don't think any of that happened. She was sexually abused, but not by her father, in my opinion. I don't know that for a fact, though. That's because I didn't know anything about BPD. Now I do. But, I guess I'll explain why. Because, again, in hindsight, armchair diagnosis, which of course can only be done if she would actually go and sit with a psychologist for, many sessions. But I do believe that her mother is absolute chronic borderline. She's still wrapped up. I mean, whenever she talks about her mother or whenever her mother comes around her, she completely just turns into this hardcore codependent, people-pleasing for her mother. And of course, I, being who I am, I would have been a threat to her mother, which explains why she split so horribly on me, right as her mother showed up. Like literally her mother was there, a day, and she, had to destroy me. Because I represented in her mind and to her actual mother, I represented a threat to her mother's soul, emotional possession of her. And she had pointed out that when I had mentioned the word, I've been looking into this thing because her and I both were wondering what the heck's going on with her. She's like, I wish I could find out what's wrong with me. And I'm like, I found this thing. It's called borderline personality disorder. And she immediately flipped out and said, oh, my dad. my dad said that about my mom, and then, she couldn't have anything to do with me. Of course, she came back a week later saying, yeah, you're right, I think I am borderline. Oh, maybe, no, I'm not. Yes, I am. So, point being is that I think, what she was feeling was just the dread and the hatred towards her father, which her mother actually felt towards her ex-husband, because she's a borderline. So she was co-opting her mother's hatred, supporting her mother, by hating her father. And so I reminded her of her father all of a sudden. Anyway, I forgot where I was going with that. But getting back to the comment here, first off, so Johan is right in that at that time, and so here's what I'm going to say. The codependent, unlike the borderline, when the codependent feels attacked, the codependent may split. Codependents do split. They do get angry. They do have flashes of anger. They do snap. They do get very angry if they're threatened. So they do have that same thing. It's the same thing that the borderline does. It's for slightly different reasons, but it's basically the same thing. I can't believe that you had a negative feeling about me, or you're thinking badly about me, or if you happen to point out something that's unconsciously a reality. So for instance, like they don't use this word anymore, but when I was a kid, they used to use the word latent homosexual. What they meant by that was an unconscious homosexual, or somebody who was in denial about their homosexuality. We don't use that word now, but it meant unconscious. And if you were to say to a latent homosexual something about, wow, that's a really effeminate looking outfit you've got, they would go, what are you talking about? This is manly. I got this at the thing, and I'm a man. I can't believe it. I'm not effeminate. What are you implying? Because you pushed a button. Now, consciously, they tell themselves, no, I'm straight. On an unconscious level, they're really struggling with it. You point it out to them, they get very angry with you. Methinks thou dost protest too much, as the bard said. So when you point out to a codependent that their codependency is actually tremendously selfishly oriented, not only is it selfish, but it's narcissistic, and in fact, you can be psychopathic and have a lack of empathy towards your desired codependent mark. When I say that to them, that codependency is incredibly selfish and very destructive and full of unconscious rage, they get very angry with me and they want to defend themselves, which is what Johan is doing here. Now, let's give Johan the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is all my projection. Maybe I'm the covert narcissist and I'm projecting onto Johan. Maybe. But when somebody is not unconscious, like if you go to somebody who's not a latent homosexual, and you say to them, that's a very effeminate looking thing you're wearing, they go, it is? Oh, I never looked at it that way. Well, I'm going to wear it anyway. Or, I think you might be gay. Really? I don't think so. If you're right, I'm not aware of it, but help me understand. So that's somebody who doesn't, who isn't defensive. If you're super defensive about something, especially when I'm not talking about you, it's a pretty good chance we're poking something. We're touching a sensitive point. So as I said, Johan is he's not splitting on me, but he is very rageful at me. He's very angry at me. And he's triangulating with you and Sam Vaknin in order to prove me wrong. And but he won't come out and tell me. So this is what I mean. The borderline splits. Their rage is immediate. Their rage isn't so much about being attacked, because if they feel safe and close, and you can, that's why they like narcissists, because narcissists will attack and abuse them, but that's at least some attention, and they're getting all the narcissist's full attention, so that's okay. It's the threat of being abandoned. They can't tolerate that. If your criticism feels to them like you're about to abandon them, then they'll split on you and rage on you. codependent is going to rage at you for not thinking they're perfect. If you're not perfect, and they think that you're telling them you're not perfect, you're doing it wrong, then they get rageful. But they may not split on you, it will seethe. So borderlines explode with rage. Codependents seethe. They seethe with resentment. And they will take you to task for it. So Johan, last time we're talking, he says, let's be friends. I'm like, what do you mean, let's be friends? We can both be right. I'm like, it's okay. We don't have to both be right. You can be upset with me. You can disagree with me. I can disagree with you. In fact, I encourage you to go do that, and he doesn't want to do that. But what does he do? He comes back and tries to shame me on my channel in front of everybody. He's obviously full of rage about me saying that he's a covert narcissist. Well, I didn't say he was. I never once said that he himself was, to my knowledge. I said codependents, empaths are covert narcissists. And I didn't get to the rest of it. Let me get to the rest of it. I was just telling you how angry he is at me. The vicious part is the covert narcissist and the codependency coming with that. Next paragraph. Generally, comparing codependent people to covert narcissists is as vicious as saying that the victims of World War II concentration camps are as evil as those who set up the concentration camps. So now he's calling me a Nazi. Because I said to him, not personally, I said in general and about myself. Because if you watch that video, I talk about me. I talk about, this is me. I'm telling you, this is where I was. That I had no clue what was going on with my borderline. I was not empathizing with her. I was projecting all of my pain onto her, all of my need onto her. And I was trying to force her with my love to stay with me and meet my needs. And I was saying that there's no empathy in that. That is as narcissistic and abusive as what they do. It's just coming out in a different way. So for according to Johan, me saying that a codependent is a covert narcissist is equal to Nazis who set up concentration camps to kill Jews. This is what I mean. He says that he wasn't upset with me, that we can both be right, we'd be friends, but his need to placate me is coming from rage. Homicidal rage. And he projects onto me homicidal rage by calling me a Nazi. You see that? Now, I hope Johan can hear this. I have nothing against Johan. I wish him nothing but the best. This is why these are the three things that I know of that have worked for me. Therapy, the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous, and daily meditation. Because in order to heal, and this is what it's all about, channel is completely devoted to codependents or empaths, partners of, ex-partners of borderlines who need to heal from the damage. In order to heal from the damage, you must be willing to be completely and ruthlessly honest with yourself. And until you know what your agendas are, even as embarrassing as it may be, because look at this, look at the shame. Let me give you another way of responding to that. So let's say you're a codependent, you hear me say that, right or wrong. Let's just assume I'm wrong. Let's assume I'm wrong and you hear me say, codependents are covert narcissists. Now, when I say that, I don't say it with any judgment against narcissists. You know why I don't have any judgment against narcissists? Because I am aware that what creates a narcissist, a borderline, a psychopath, a codependent, an alcoholic, a drug addict, that what creates that is the same thing. So a narcissist just has a little different twist, so I don't judge them. So for me to say that a codependent is a covert narcissist, I'm just throwing different shades on the very same egg. You know, your egg is blue, mine is red. It's an egg. It's still an egg. Inside of it is yolk and, yellow yolk and, clear stuff. But if you have judgment, if you feel superior to the very person you claim to be wanting to help, which is the borderline. Now, Johan has no problem. If I were to start talking about how borderlines are psychopathic and narcissistic, he would have no problem with that. In fact, he would have no problem if I were to start talking about how borderlines are in fact narcissists. He would have no problem with that. He would have no problem with me talking about it. He himself says the vicious part is the covert narcissist and the codependency coming with that. They're not only narcissists, but they're codependents. He would have no problem with that. But if that light shines on him, he has a real problem with it. Because he is admitting that he has murderous rage towards those he wants to help. That's why this whole Nazi concentration camp thing comes up. Murderous rage. Because the moment that I said, not even to him, the moment I said to anybody, the moment I said empaths, because I started out with empaths are covert narcissists, that revealed the rage within him that he feels towards the borderlines and whoever else he wants to help. And me too. I'm not pointing him out. I've got the same thing. That makes him so uncomfortable. Now he projects. So how does projection work? Projection is somebody walks in the room, reminds you of your mother that beat you and tortured you. You consciously can't tolerate the memory of that, nor can you tolerate hating your mother. But you do. Somebody walks in, looks like your mother. All of a sudden, your murderous rage and your shame comes to the surface, but you don't become conscious of it. But all of a sudden, you feel it in the room. And then you say to that person, "Why are you so angry? Why are you so judgmental?" And the person says, "What are you talking about?" That's projection. So Johan is projecting onto me. He sees me as a murderous World War II Nazi death camp perpetrator, because I inferred that he might be a covert narcissist because he is an empath. And so that's my point. That's my point, is that if you really want to heal, you've got to be willing to look at that. Got to be willing to look at that. So I disagree with Sam Vaknin, and it's just I think it comes from a different experience. I believe that the empathy that codependents feel is as empty and as meaningless and as has the least amount of true compassion. If we want to say that empathy is a feeling that you have, like you feel something. Here, let me share another story with you. If you're squeamish, turn this off now, because this is going to be a challenging thing to hear. But this illustrates my point. Years ago, it's been years ago now, 20 years ago? More than that? Oh my God, has it been that long? Anyway, I used to be an actor. And I wrote and shot a film about serial killers. And it was all about this. It was all about, the plot was about, it was a lot like Silence of the Lambs, but not really. It was a woman who was going around from prison to prison interviewing serial killers. And at one point she says, the reason why I'm doing this is because if I can just make them understand, or if I can understand them, then I can see them as human, and then they won't hurt me. That was one of the monologues that I wrote for her. And so I did a bunch of research on serial killers, and it messed me up, by the way. It really messed me up. I mean, the depth of research that I did, and I played one of the serial killers in the movie, and it really messed with me. And this one thing I'm going to share with you again. If you're squeamish, turn this off, because it's very hard to listen to. But there was this one guy in Germany who was a pedophile, and he murdered young boys, sexually assaulted them, murdered them. But he didn't just sexually assault them. He would chop them up. Things like that. And he was talking about, again, turn this off if you're not ready to hear it. It's very hard to listen to. He was talking about, he was revealing what had happened to him as a child. And he was actually trying, in prison, trying to, share what was happening to him and all that. Who knows, how they are. Those psychopaths never really. But he was talking about how damaged he had been and how hurt he had been and how it turned him into what he was, and that he realized he was mentally ill and that there was something really wrong with him. And he had been so damaged and devalued and harmed by his mother, who had abused him and physically and sexually abused him and all that kind of stuff, that he had found a young boy, abducted him, took him to his lair, and was physically harming him with a sharp knife. I won't get any more than that. When he saw how much pain the boy was in, he immediately felt empathy for him. So much so that he went, grabbed him, hugged him, kissed him on the mouth. And he said the reason that he did that was he felt so much, he saw himself in that boy that he was torturing, that he was in so much pain. And of course that confused the hell out of the little boy. He didn't know what to think, and he even talked about that. And of course he didn't end up freeing that boy. It wasn't like he stopped and then freed that boy and bandaged him up and took him to the hospital. No, you know what happened to that little boy. My point is that he was filled with empathy in that moment when he, took care of that little boy's feelings. And this is what I hear in borderlines. Borderlines will talk about, no, you don't understand. It's not that I don't have empathy. I don't say that I don't have empathy. I have nothing but empathy. I feel nothing but love. I feel too much love. But they don't have enough love to stop them from torturing you and splitting on you. The codependent, when the codependent is filled with empathy, crying tears about how much pain that poor borderline is in and how I'm going to fix them, that feeling of empathy is meaningless. I want that to sink in. That feeling, that narcissistic experience of your feeling is meaningless. It's emotional masturbation. That's all it is. It's emotional masturbation. Unless that feeling gives you the power and the ability to act on that in the future going forward. In the example of the serial killer, if that surge of empathy that he had, that surge of feeling at one and identifying with the pain of that boy, if that had spurred him to stop everything that he was doing, to call an ambulance and to surrender, then he could say, I found my empathy and it changed my behavior. It's not what happened. When the borderline says, no, you don't understand, I'm filled with empathy. When I feel so much for you, I love you so much, I can't handle it. That empathy is meaningless. It's not a badge of honor. It's a narcissistic experience that doesn't lead anywhere. And when I say the word meaningless, I'm not saying, borderlines listening, codependents, I'm not saying your feelings don't have value. They do. You should have all of your feelings. Like Johan should have all of his feelings. When I say that codependents are covert narcissists and he feels that as a personal attack, he should have all of his anger towards me and say, that makes me really angry that you say that. That really hurts me. I'm offended by that. He should have that. If he said that, I would say nothing. I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't respond. I'd say, I understand. I would feel the same way. I get it. I empathize with you. Am I making sense? The codependent, I disagree with Sam. The more I talk about it, the codependent is as narcissistic as the borderline or their NPD or whatever, because the empathy that they show is not rooted in authentic compassion. Authentic compassion says, wow, I have really strong feelings for you. Okay, what is the best thing for this person right now? Authentic compassion also has within it, what is best for me right now? What is best for us right now? And if you're causing somebody horrific damage to the point where you need to call an ambulance and call the police, that means you have the ability to go, what is best for us is me surrendering. But when you have all kinds of feelings, you are filled with a feeling that does not result in you taking constructive action in the future and not changing that behavior, then you can say that you had empathy, you had compassion. So I think I made my point. I tried to make my point. I probably repeated myself 6 or 7 times. Let's see. I'm happy to take any questions. And again, I'm happy for people to disagree with me, and I'm happy for people to be upset about what I'm saying. I hope it upsets you. Not that I'm trying to upset you. Look, you don't become a codependent unless there's some major damage, unless you are in some deep pain. In fact, truth be known, I was watching a couple of Sam's videos, and it messed me up. It brought up so much pain. It's hard. If you think I'm sitting here slinging this at you, that it's easy for me, and I know that I'm crashing your defense mechanisms. I know I'm saying things like to Johan. I know I'm saying things that are going to push your buttons and make you feel like wanting to jump off a cliff. I know that. I'm not unaware of that. Unfortunately, that's the only way to heal. The only way to heal is to be so ruthlessly honest with yourself, to be able to tolerate, to be able to give yourself what you weren't given as a kid, which is to tolerate and love yourself through the worst of your feelings. And the worst of the shame, because this all is shame, all of it. Losing somebody is horrible. I lost a fiance. It was horrible. Very sad. It still makes me sad. She passed away. Love of my life passed away. Still, that is not as torturous as shame. The borderline, the reason why I feel so much compassion for the borderline is because of the shame. That's what makes them want to kill themselves. The rejection, it's not just the rejection, it's the shame associated with it. And for the codependent, who is slightly more nuanced in their defense mechanisms, slightly more nuanced in their narcissism, and in their psychopathy, and in their sociopathy, they are filled with shame because they don't do it right. The reason they're not loved is that they don't do it right. They're not good enough. And if they were good enough, if they did it right, if I had 6-pack abs, maybe if I didn't look like I was in my 50s, which I am, and if I didn't have a little bit of a turkey neck here, or you can see the bags under my eyes, maybe somebody would love me. Maybe if she was a better housewife And if she cooked dinner right, maybe she'd feel better. Maybe she'd be loved. Maybe if he was a more successful businessman, and instead of having, a 6-figure income, if he had a 7-figure income, maybe then he'd have value. Shame is at the core of all of it. The point I'm trying to make is that to be with yourself in the most horrible of feelings and to love yourself through it means to sit with your own shame and not act on it. The empath, the self-styled empath victim who goes on and has their own YouTube channel talking about how to win an argument with the narcissist. The 3 things narcissists hate. And if you want to win, and if you want to get revenge on the narcissist, or the ones that talk about how the super empath is going to destroy narcissism in the world forever. I mean, if they could sit with their shame and not be so full of murderous rage, then I don't judge the narcissist. It doesn't mean I'm going to make myself available to them. It doesn't mean I'm going to let myself be a target. It doesn't mean I will ever have contact with my borderline ex ever again. Even if she were to be magically cured, I will never have contact with that woman again. Because as much as I believe that I understand and empathize and have compassion for what she lived through and what she lives through, I deserve real love. I don't deserve that. And if you can sit through the shame and love yourself through the feelings of shame, then you can learn how to really let yourself be loved. Unlike the empath, again, who spends all their time being a victim. And doesn't understand that they're... Now, continue to watch on this channel. Now, Johan's a good guy, so my apologies, Johan, for putting the spotlight on you. Johan is working on it. He's a good guy. He's really trying. There are people that come onto my channel who are empaths, who get so furious with me. And I invite you to watch and read the comments. Maybe I'll stop blocking some of the really abusive people so you can see how abusive they are. I mean, I block and delete the majority of them when I get abused. But they'll start telling me how they're not whatever it is. They're not a codependent, and they're not selfish, and they're not this, and they're not that. And then they'll start pointing fingers at me and say how pathetic I am, and you're just like that crying baby you have. You're just like that. You should really take a look at yourself. And that says a lot about you and how cruel and horrible. I mean, they say really horrible things. And the point I want to bring up to you is that is their own shame. What I say on my other channel, I have another channel where I do the same kind of, I'm really obnoxious and, point my fingers and tell people what's going on with their unconscious. I do that on my other channel. But it's more of a spiritual teaching thing. But what will happen every now and then is some expert, in meditation or whatever it is I'm teaching that they're an expert in, they'll show up to my channel and they'll start telling me how I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, and then blah, blah. And I go, hey, don't waste your time arguing with me, about whether or not reincarnation exists or why what karma is, or, don't get mad don't argue with me about it. I've got my own channel. I'm spouting my opinion. You're wasting your breath. If you really believe that I'm wrong and what you're talking about is really important and people need to learn it, go teach it on your channel. Go write books. Go make videos. Go teach seminars. Don't waste your time arguing with, as you say, some idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about. Go teach it. And I mean that. Because when you're angry at somebody, you're projecting. And what's happening is when people do that, and I tell my students this on my other channel, I say the reason why this person is so angry with me is because they see themselves in me. And they're shaming. Whenever they think about going onto YouTube and spouting truths about the universe, they feel such shame that they shut themselves down. So when somebody comes along and does it, whom they actually relate to, and maybe even like or connect with, they're filled with rage. And so they shame them. So trying to stop me. In fact, there's somebody, you may know who it is, and this person, I'm quite certain, will watch this video. There's a person on here who's got their own channel about this same subject. And this person has come onto my channel. They made videos about me, took them off. But this person comes onto my channel with fake YouTube accounts on a regular basis and leaves really nasty comments, always telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about and I should stop. The reason why is that that person has tremendous self-judgment and shame over what they do. They feel like a fraud. So when they come on here and tell me how I don't know what I'm talking about and I'm not a therapist and I should get off, that's their projection onto me. So you see how projection works? If we can get honest, in those cases, becoming conscious, because that person is not conscious. They're not conscious that they're projecting onto me their shame about being a healer. Being conscious is more difficult than being honest. But if we can be honest about what we want and not judge it, there's no shame in saying to anybody, whether they're borderline, narcissist, your parents, your best friend, somebody who is loving, your next door neighbor, there's no shame in looking somebody in the face and saying, I don't know what it is about you, but I am overwhelmed with this hunger for your love. I just wish I could consume you. I want you so badly. Nothing wrong with saying it. There's a hell of a lot wrong when then you take that, internalize it, feel shame over it because you don't feel lovable. Turn that into a projected false empathy and say, I'm just here for you. You stupid, screwed up, whatever it is. A cluster B, you stupid, screwed up cluster B. I am so much better than you, and I am here for you, and I'm here to help you. And I'm full of unconscious rage at you for continuously rejecting me and not loving me as much as I want. All right, I think I've made my point. Probably many times over. Gabriella, hi, question. Thank you so much for advice regarding my BPD X 3 months out of that 5 months relationship now. I've joined ACA. Congratulations. ACA is Adult Children of Alcoholics. You'll find a lot of us in there. Very good. Yeah, ACA. My parents aren't alcoholics but are dysfunctional. Awesome. Nick Carey. So what was your question there? You're thanking me. All right. I don't know what your question is. Maybe. Oh, here it is. I identify with the literature. I'm also working with a clinical psychologist on my relationship with my toxic BPD mom and NPD dad. Holy crap. Growing up. Both still toxic in their 60s. Is ACA okay instead of CODA? Yes. CODA is just an umbrella for just codependence. It'll work for ACAs. It'll work for partners of narcissists, borderlines. It'll work with any kind of where you just you're dependent on other people to feel okay. It'll work with anything. ACA is really good because adult children of alcoholics. My dad was an alcoholic. Adult children of alcoholics tend to, the hell that they go through is awful. So the point is that's a really good place to find really deep support for that pain inside. Let's see. Also, please, can you talk regarding the codependent and BPD's relationship with alcohol abuse and alcoholism? I am 8 years sober in AA for 8 years, but it didn't stop me from getting into a relationship with a crazy borderline as an untreated codependent. Yeah, yep. That's why I say that's why it's a three-pronged approach. This is my experience. My experience is that therapy is really good at uncovering what's in your unconscious, but that doesn't mean you have the power to take action on it. I'm not saying that therapists do this, but the unconscious assumption of therapy, or the generalized assumption of therapy, is if we can become aware of what's in our unconscious, it'll go away, and it doesn't. You're now just aware. Oh, I can't stop going after abusive men. I realize I did that because my dad was a narcissist, and I'm aware of that. I'm playing out my childhood stuff, but I can't stop myself. Well, then what good is it? No, I'm not saying that all therapy is meaningless like that, but that's my experience with a lot of it. It only goes so far. 12 steps I have found to be absolutely revolutionary in changing your brain chemistry. Literally, it'll change your brain chemistry. And the main thing they teach you is what I'm saying, how to have all of your feelings and take contrary action, whatever your addiction is. Alcoholism, drugs, dangerous people, sex, whatever it is, the first thing you learn how to do is to take the opposite action of what your impulse is telling you to do. Pick up the phone, look at where's my borderline? Is she there? Oh, she answered. I'm going to hang up. I'm going to go look. Is she on Facebook? Oh my God, she's on Facebook with another guy. She's probably with him right now. I'm not going to drive over there. I'm not going to drive over there. I am not going to drive over there and go see. So it teaches you how to take contrary action to your impulses. And then that gives you time to actually do the real work, the inventory. The inventory is not what a lot of people think, which is writing a big book on, what happened to me. I did that my first time I wrote an inventory. I wrote this huge novel about my mom, this, and and my sponsor said, that's really good, but that's not an inventory. Inventory is looking at your resentments. When you look at your resentments, then you look at what your agendas were. Resentments mean that somebody didn't do what you wanted, even if that somebody, broke your nose. It's not that they didn't do something horrible that you have something to be resentful about. It just means that you wanted something from them. Yeah, I wanted him to marry me, and I got in his face, and I looked in his phone, and I saw his number of his girlfriend he was talking to, and I yelled, and I threw the phone at him, and I hit him on the side of the head, and he punched me in the nose and broke my nose, and I hate him for breaking my nose. Well, now we know. You had an agenda, you acted out, you had a part in that. Doesn't justify what he did. Or in my case, my dad drank himself to death. And I was so angry at him. This was before he died, but I was so angry at him for all of the things, not taking me to Little League. In fact, today I was out body surfing. It's beautiful. It's summertime here in central Queensland on the beach, and it's tropical and warm, and there was it was so adorable. There was this father. He had been like in his early 30s, and he had this little girl with him. She must have been 7 years old, 8 years old. And the waves were really small, and he puts her on the surfboard, and he's, swimming behind, pushing her out there, and then turning around and pushing, and she's catching these waves, and she's surfing the hell out of these tiny waves. And she's having so much fun, and it was so sweet. And I'm thinking, my God, she's so lucky. She's so lucky to have that dad be there with her and love her. She's gonna, I'm imagining what a beautiful, amazing, loving partner she's going to be for somebody in 20 years, because her dad loved her and was with her, and she's going to have nothing but positive feeling towards men. She's not going to, destroy men the way, blah, blah, blah. And I was so angry at my dad. He never did any of that stuff with me. He never tossed a ball around with me. He made all these promises. He was going to take me here, and we were going to go do that together. And we never did any of that. And then he did all the other stuff that he did. And on top of that, he drank himself to death. I was so angry with him. Until I realized that it's none of my business. He had the right to live however he wanted to live. He wants to drink himself to death. That's his right. It's selfish of me. Understandably selfish, but it's selfish of me to not let him have whatever life he wants to have. And when I saw that, that got rid of it. I still wish my dad were different. I still mourn over the loss of, I didn't get to have that amazing experience that little girl has probably every day with her dad. I don't know, maybe that's true, maybe that's not, but I mourn for that. I mourn that I never got that. Whenever I'm feeling alone, I'm in my house and I feel alone and, oh, nobody loves me and I'm all alone and all that. And I sit myself down and I try to give myself what my dad should have given to me. And I love myself through the shame as best as I can. And the only reason I'm able to do that is because I did that fourth step. And I was able to, because what you don't understand before you do the inventory and you look at your resentments, what you don't understand, and by you I mean everybody, what we don't understand is that we think we're in control of those things. When you are full of rage, which is what the codependent is doing when they are empathizing and trying to love this broken person who has said over and over, I can't love you, when they are refusing to take no for an answer and continue to pour their love, that they don't realize what is driving them is their rage. They think they're in control. And then, now, all of you codependents you're empaths who aren't codependent and you've got it together. Those of you who want to argue with me about why the borderline should not be given a pass, why they chose to do what they're doing, they're evil, and we can't, I know that they have a mental illness, but we can't just write them off and, just give them excuses. What you don't realize is that now you're forced to deal with the rage that you feel now about them not taking responsibility for the harm that they've caused you. You don't realize that what was driving all of your empathy when you were with them. And you notice you only get angry with them and feel and see them as evil after they've completely, totally discarded you beyond repair or beyond hope. When there's no hope of them ever coming back, then you allow yourself to judge them and hate them and be full of resentment. The irony and the hypocrisy is apparent to me. I'm the same. I did the same thing. Am I making sense? So in terms of the relationships with alcohol abuse and alcoholism, my experience with borderlines is that their alcoholism isn't really true alcoholism. Meaning, alcoholism and drug addiction is a very specific disorder. It has a very specific, in fact, drug addiction versus alcoholism is different. They're very closely associated, but they're a different strain of the same virus. And that's why alcoholics go to AA and that they get, and drug addicts go to NA because that's where they need to be. And that's why Sex Anonymous go to blah, blah, blah. Because each one has its own specific flavor. My borderline ex was an opiate addict. Now, there's a difference between being an addict, like, somebody who's been clean for 10 years but constantly thinks about using and is addicted to, that's a different kind. That's addiction versus dependence. She was dependent. But what's happening is they're not driven by this same internal kind of emptiness that an alcoholic or a drug addict is. They are driven to do whatever the hell they can do to silence the horrific pain. So it's not it's not the same. I'm trying to say it's not the same. In other words, if you take a borderline who abused alcohol and take them to Alcoholics Anonymous, it's not going to fit the same in my experience. I could be wrong, but that's what I saw. Because when I was with her, and then she finally revealed to me that she was an opiate addict, and we talked about 12-step groups. I said, you know what, you don't strike me as the typical. I said, and I didn't know anything about BPD, but I said, there's something different about yours. I can't put my finger on it, but you're not like the average opiate addict. There's something else. Of course, now I know what it was. It was BPD. So alcoholism, alcohol, drugs, sex, dangerous living, driving fast, that kind of stuff. That's what BPDs do. But it's what they're looking for is, imagine that they're in a room, like people who get tortured and somebody turns on, Slayer at, just unimaginable decibels for days and weeks at a time. And they have to sit there while being blasted. That's what's happening with them. They're being blasted with all kinds of stuff. And so they're looking for something that's louder. They're looking for something to drown it out. Alcoholics and drug addicts are actually looking for something that there's a specific shaped hole inside of them. They're looking for something to fit that perfect hole. So they have a whole different kind of thing driving them, even though they feel there's a lot of similarities. So, your BPD, if he could get help, might not need to go to AA. He'll just stop drinking because he won't need to drown it out. The screaming, impulses. He won't need to drown them out with something louder, right? All right, Billy T. I am going to block you. You are perfectly welcome on my channel to engage in discussion, to have an opinion. It's not okay with you to be abusive, so I'm going to block you. You want to be part of the discussion? Well, you had your chance. It's over. I just don't put up with abuse. So let's all say goodbye to, what is his name? Billy T. Let's all say goodbye to Billy T. My suggestion for you next time, should you choose to listen to it, is try to actually engage with people. What I ask that people do is ask honest questions or share honest feelings. Saying you disagree with me is one thing. Accusing me of being a narc projecting and calling me fake is just outright abusive, and I'm explaining myself because I'm actually showing my viewers what to do when they don't engage with narcissists. Johan is different because Johan is respectful. He's honest. He is acting out in, passive aggressive ways, but he's not consciously coming at me, calling me names, and accusing me of things. So we're going to hide Billy from the channel. Let's all wave goodbye to him. He's now blocked. This is what you do to your NPD or your BPD. All right, let's see what else. So you were asking a question about, could I talk about BPD's relationships with alcohol abuse, alcoholism? Okay. All right. So that's my thoughts about that. Are you still with your BPD? If so, it's your mom. Well, there you go. That's totally different. Have you talked with your, this is a rhetorical question, you don't have to answer me, I'm just asking. Have you talked with your therapist about breaking off all contact with your mom? I'm okay with you doing that. I broke all contact with my mom. I didn't even know she was borderline, but I couldn't. Every time I would see her, I mean, I'd go years, maybe talk to her on the phone once or twice, and then I'd go see her, and just within 5 minutes, she would devalue me, and and just knew how to devalue me. Just a look or something that she would say that would make me regress, like I'd never left, and I just couldn't put myself through that anymore. And people would get upset with me. That's your mom. Why are you abandoning your mom? And I'm just like, I know. I can't. She's so damaging to me. And I felt really guilty about it. But my feeling is this, do whatever the hell you have to do. Do whatever the hell you have to do. Anyway, I don't know. You talk with your therapist about that and see if that's a good idea or not. Pete D. I feel lost when my BPD girlfriend devalues me. All she wants is material things from me. Why are you still with her? I mean, I know why you're still with her, but Pete, it's not going to get any better. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Why are you complaining about it? You can complain about it or you can leave. And then you can complain about it after you've left. And then I'm going to want to help you. Complaining about it while you're still there is like, hitting yourself in the head with a hammer and talking about how painful it is. Stop hitting yourself in the head. I know it's really hard not to, but just stop. Then tell me how bad your head hurts, and I'll empathize with you. So do whatever the hell you got to do. Let's see what else. Billy T. All right, yeah. So there's Kathleen. What are you doing? Can you give some examples instead of just claiming he's a narcissist? What you mean? You want him to give examples of how I'm a narcissist? I don't want him to do that. If I want a few hours to myself, she splits. And why are you still with her? When she's coming down from drugs, she splits. Oh, not only that, but she's on drugs all the time. She's a real winner. Yeah, no wonder you're with her. Why haven't you left? I'm making fun of you, but I'm just trying to reflect back to you. Dude, there's only one answer here, and that is to leave. To leave and to go completely no contact, which means that you block your phone, you block your email, you block your Facebook, you move, you get a restraining order if you need to, you do whatever the hell you have to do and you get away. The last thing you text to her before you leave is that you say, this is really painful. I think you should go look into whether or not you have borderline personality disorder. And that's it. And then you leave. And then you talk to your therapist and you go to Coda and you meditate. And if you need to, come onto this channel and have me, shake my finger at you. Nick Carey. Question. What are your thoughts about the borderline talking to my friend after I've abandoned them? What are my thoughts? My thoughts are that she's a borderline and that's what they do. What kind of thoughts I don't understand. I understand you don't like it. I understand that she's using him to hurt you. And I understand that it would be hurtful for you and maybe your friend doesn't understand. I also understand maybe are you young? Like, are you a young guy? Young people tend to not know what the hell they're doing and understand boundaries, and your friend may not understand the boundaries there. My other thing is, why are you hanging out with a friend who's talking to your borderline ex? Maybe it's time to get a new set of friends. Do whatever the hell you got to do to get away. My thoughts are, that's what borderlines do. Borderlines will find whatever way they can. If they've got a hankering for you, they're going to find whatever way they can to get under your skin. Again, I was watching Sam Vaknin and he was talking really wonderfully about borderlines. The goal of borderlines, of course, this is unconscious. They're not consciously aware of this. Their unconscious motivation is to dump you. That's the whole point of it. Their whole point of it is to dump you before you dump them. Now, they're convinced you're going to dump them. And, talking to your friend and flirting with your friend is a way of continuing that, see, I'm protecting myself by getting under your skin with your friend. I'm leaving you for him. Don't you wish you were him? They're incredibly hurtful in that way. Get out. If you have to write your friend off, write your friend off. Listen, there's not, I learned this. It's better to be alone and have your own power and your own integrity than to be with somebody that is toxic or hurtful. And then you end up finding people who won't do that to you. What do you mean, how do I leave? I don't know. You just do. What do you mean, how? You just do. I know it's hard. You're just going to have to do it. Gabriella, my BPD ex binge drinks and uses cocaine. Oh, what a winner. My BPD mom drinks a glass of wine like a normal person. I'm visiting my mom now. Why? She threatened to leave the house and said she wants to die when I carefully confronted. Why are you confronting her? It's none of your business what she does. You do need Coda. It's none of your business what she does. If she wants to drink, that's her business. Your decision is whether or not you want to be around it. You don't want to be around it, then leave. I was 10 years old, and I've got a thing. I don't like listening to people chomp their food. There's actually a word for it. It's some kind of a disorder. It drives me crazy. It makes me feel like I'm being attacked. And I was at my friend's house, and his older brother was there, and he was chomping his food. And I said, could you please, I asked him very nicely. I said, could you please close your mouth when you eat? And he says, if you don't like it, go home. He was right. I sat there, he's right. It's his house. He's been doing this his whole life. He wants to eat like that. I mean, it was okay that I asked, but your mom wants to drink. It's none of your business. You don't have to confront her. Just leave. Say, Mom, I don't like being around you when you drink. But the truth is, you don't like being around your mom at all. So I don't know why you have a relationship with her. I mean, I know why, but I mean, there's no way to win. There's no way to win. There's nothing to be gained from it. Nothing to be gained from it. If you can handle it, great. I couldn't. I wouldn't be able to handle it. When I carefully confronted her about overfeeding her 2 dogs, they are fat. Yeah, so you not only need Coda, you need Al-Anon. Gabriella, it's not you got to stop trying to fix people and control people's behavior. It's time to stop. Nothing about that is helpful to you or to anybody else. I used to feel scared as a child when she threatened to leave or kill herself. Now I think, okay, then do it. It's just manipulation. I don't know if it's manipulation or not. 11% of borderlines commit suicide. I'm just going to tell you, it's not your responsibility what she does. You have one responsibility in this lifetime. That one responsibility is to do absolutely everything in your power to give yourself the best life you can. If that means never talking to your mother again, then that's what you do. I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm just saying, getting, the fact that she overfeeds her dogs, that she drinks, and these are just nonsense things to distract yourself from the horrific hell that you live with just being around her. Your need to control. This is codependence, the need to control. It's manipulative, it's controlling, it's abusive. It's abusive. Every time that you want to control somebody and tell them how they need to live their life, and you know what's best for them, even if you're right, it is abusive every time you act on that. On this channel, I don't do it so much because of the different dynamic. On my other channel, I say, I only want to hear your questions. And in my personal life, unless somebody comes to me and asks me for my opinion, I don't give it to them. At the very least, if I have a good relationship with somebody and and we have that kind of relationship, I might say, hey, you know, I have an idea that might help you with that. Do you want to hear it? And I mean it. You know, I give them the opportunity to say yes or no. If they say no, then I say, okay, and I don't bring it up. If they say, yeah, I'd love to hear it, then I give them my helpful opinion. Otherwise, it's what is that? Unsomething advice. Unsolicited advice. Unsolicited advice is abusive. Even if you're right. Even if they keep doing it, it'll kill them. Maybe you say it once. You say, hey, you know, stop hitting yourself in the head with a hammer. They keep hitting this. After that, they keep hitting themselves in the head with a hammer. It's on them. It's abusive for you to keep going back and say, I told you. Here, I've got 2 articles from doctors talking about head trauma. You really need to read them. You really need to read that. It's abusive. Now that you know that, now that you know trying to control your mom and telling her what to do, telling her how to feed her dogs, confronting her about her business, now that you know that it's abusive, now you get to sit with your horrendous discomfort at watching somebody do something damaging and your inability to stop them. That's your projection. When your mom, and trust me, I feel for the poor dogs. I do. But when your mom is overfeeding her 2 dogs, the fear that you have for the dogs getting sick and dying, and the fear of not being able to stop her doing that, is you projecting onto the dogs. You're identifying with them. That's you as a little kid. You can't go back in time and save yourself from her abuse. That's why it makes you crazy. It makes you have to do something to stop it. So get away from it. If it drives you crazy, get away from it. All right, and then you're telling me more about what your mom does. I know she does that. I believe that. I don't know what else to tell you. If it's causing you that much damage, and you accept the fact that she has a mental illness, that she's never going to get better, she's never going to love you, she's never going to see you for who you are. If it's causing you that much damage, then stop interacting with your mom. I know that's easier said than done. I would talk to your therapist about it and talk to your people in ACA about it. All right, I don't see any more comments or questions. Yeah, so before I stop, so you saw Billy T. I don't remember what he was saying. He was calling me a narc and a fake. And I don't know if he was a borderline or if he was a codependent. Or if he's the troll. There's a person I told you about who trolls my channel, both my channels, and keeps creating these fake YouTube accounts so that they can harass me and abuse me. But it's all projection. So whatever that person said about me, that is their feeling about themselves. That person, if I remember correct, that person said I was a narc, like I was faking it. I was a narcissist. That's their fear about themselves. That's how they think. That's who they think they are, and they can't tolerate that thought, so they get angry at me. Okay, all right. Is that it? Yep, that's it. All right, guys. Thanks again for watching, and if you want to know what I did to heal myself from my relationship with my borderline ex, click the join button at the super empath level. And while your cape is flapping in the wind, you can learn some things, some meditations and things like that. Also, you can check out the 90-day challenge over at thunderwizard.com. It's a totally different thing, but those two things work very well together. The whole point of that is to help you find what your soul wants to do in this life and to ruthlessly go after your soul, living your dharma, your truth, your destiny. That's what that's all about. Okay, that's it for me. I will see you guys all next time.